whichever way you look into it, the political party that forms the opposition, the PNP, this morning is in a combustive state, a state of omni-shambles, what colloquially in some parts of the globe would be referred to as the political mare's nest. Tensions are still high in the party, following the move a few days ago of its entire second-tier leadership to quit en bloc. Damian Crawford, Dr. Wicker McNeil, Michael Phillips and Philip Paulwell quit en bloc just before the expiration of the deadline for them to indicate whether they are desirous of being again elected to the PNP executive. So as we currently speak this morning, Norman Scott is among the VP candidates, so two Golding allies, Ian Hales, Richard Azan, and Eugene Kelly, duly nominated. And many people have been asking the question, what caused the breakdown in the talks? Because there were talks to avoid the PNP going to a contest. It's a question which I was about to answer nationwide at 5, was put to me, but the PNP General Secretary, Dr. Dayton Campbell, joined, and it was put to him by Tyrone. Let's have a listen to how that went.
All right. So we took a decision that we were going to have a consensus, and persons were going to put up 2 candidates, and the other side put up 2 candidates. Those discussions were ongoing. I don't intend to go into the party's internal affairs on public radio. These discussions go down. The People's National Party is a public organization. That yes, Mr. Hughes, but you don't discuss the persons. No. I don't political power and office. No, we will not be discussing. We will not be discussing details. That's what we are doing here in public. For the details of it. We will not be going into the details, not me. That will not happen. Right? So let me be very clear about that.
So,
right? When those discussions broke down, and as a result of that, we had some resignations today. I am saying...
Why did the discussions break down, Dr. Campbell?
We wanted to have unity.
The Rise United faction were supposed to put up 2, and the one PNP faction were to put up 2 members for the available posts. You said those conversations broke down. Why did they break down, Dr. Campbell?
I will not get into the party's internal...
You don't need to give us all the details, but why did they break down? You must give us an idea as to why.
The negotiations broke down based on the proposals that were made. And having...
Right, so in principle you guys had some difference of opinion in principle, right? Yes, is what you're saying. Is it that you didn't agree with the persons they were putting up?
No. We had no intention of determining who a person would put up. And remember now,
so what was the problem? You have to help us. What was the problem?
Give me 15 seconds. The General Secretary of the party, I was not intimately involved in the negotiations. Because if there is a contest, then I would have to preside over it.
Dr. Dayton Campbell, Daniel, they're not in a mood of divulgence in treating with that question about what led to the breakdown of the talks. But we're going to give some answers here this morning. So I gather sometime last week, talks began among what's regarded as the Rise United and one PNP factions in the party. And the 2 camps were well on their way to what was believed to be an agreement to have 2 people from each camp elected as among the PNP slate of 4 vice presidents of the party. Peter Bunting featured as leading the talks, I gather, on behalf of the Golding camp. And Philip Paulwell, who is regarded by some as the face of defiance to Mark Golding's leadership of the party, led talks on behalf of the one PNP faction. My sources tell me that there was a general understanding that Damian Crawford, who plans to pursue his PhD, and Paulwell, who was then the chairman, would not be elected as VP of the PNP. They wouldn't go back up. But I am told that there were 2 major points of disagreement. The first being the one PNP faction indicated that Michael Phillips and Dr. Wicker McNeil were their candidates of choice, but insisted that the PNP President Mark Golding call Donna Scott Motley and invite Mrs. Scott Motley to offer herself to serve on the PNP executive. One PNP source told me that that suggestion was made in response to a desire by Mark Golding to have a woman as among the second-tier leadership of the party. But the Golding allies say that's not how it went at all. They say an attempt was made by the one PNP faction to choose Dr. McNeil and Michael Phillips as among the two and foist either Donna Scott Motley or Natalie Nita on the party leader, and they took offense to that attempt. So that's one immediate issue which led to the breakdown of the talks and has resulted in the PNP this morning being perceived as politically supine and in a state of flux. The second major point of contention I'm picking up, Daniel, which led to the breakdown of the talks, is the one PNP section of the party's insistence that Ian Hales not be among the Golding camp two choices. A member of the one PNP camp told me yesterday that Hales is bad news. His image is bad for the party, and that the party leader got pushed back when he elected Mr. Hales as national organizer, and that one PNP insisted that he not be among the candidates. But the Golding camp hit back and said that really Paulwell and company, they are not in a position to be dictating who is among the two choices for vice president of the party being put up by Mr. Golding, or the section of the party which is supportive of Mark Golding. I gather Dr. Wicker McNeil's stance was essentially that he'd only offer himself to go back up if there is no election. Yes? But some sources say that's because McNeil et al. Are aware that since Dayton Campbell became General Secretary, quite a few groups, over 600, were registered in the party, and the majority of them are supportive of Mark Golding's leadership. So the likelihood of winning a contest would be dim. But you know, a problem in the PNP is that so many of them deeply dislike each other. Daniel, for example, I'll give you a quick one. It's well known in the PNP that a former senior member of the executive and former contractor general, Dirk Harrison, are pretty close. Go back many years, even before his dispensation as lawyer and politician. So when Mr. Harrison did an investigation a few years ago where adverse findings were made regarding Ian Hales, many of Hales' allies will tell you they blame the former senior executive member for giving information to the then contractor general. That's a claim that the former senior executive member strongly denies and says, look, he didn't share any information, but he's one of those people who he doesn't disassociate from his pals from way back, regardless of how it may be perceived politically. But that's the sort of tension and era of alleged betrayal which exists, where the two men perhaps would not be comfortably sitting at the same table of the executive of the PNP after September. Another quick example of the toxic air which exists among some in the party is the issue of Philip Paulwell's visa revocation in 2019. Have I listened to former U.S. Ambassador Donald Tapia speaking to Cliff Hughes 2 weeks ago about the issue of visa revocation in Jamaica, albeit not specific to Paulwell, and listen to what Philip Paulwell said on social media on the weekend.
And what I found is the other party started it when we started looking at it was under Bunting, when Bunting was the security minister.
In this thing, you bear a bad name. People say all kinds of things about you. People go to the U.S. Embassy. People of your own ilk. That's how terrible the politics is. That's how terrible the internal politics can be. I bear these things, and I still wanted peace. I still wanted to ensure that during this period that we elect our officers, that we could agree on 4 VPs.
Philip Paulwell and before him, Donald Tapia. I gather, Daniel, that insinuation that Bunting had anything to do with visas being cancelled is something which a former security minister strongly denies. But in concluding, you see, I think the bigger problem in the PNP is that you have some adults who are behaving like petulant boys and girls. Too many of them are focused on what their party can do for their already over-fertilized egos, as opposed to apprehending some humility and digging deep for some patriotism and pondering upon the best way to position their party to be in a state where it is of some use to advancing the Jamaican dream, which the founding fathers of independent Jamaica might have contemplated. It's time for the PNP to get its act together. But I suspect it could be a long time before that happens. That's what's on my mind this morning.